So one thing that we've heard is just that a lot of parents are experiencing an increase in anxiety and stress. And when parents are dealing with their own stress and their own anxiety, it can easily distract them from noticing their children being stressed out and anxious. And so what are some ways that parents can identify some of these behaviors that these children are maybe withholding because they're fearful of stressing mom or dad out more?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, children, you can't probably make an environment in which they are not going to experience stress, because just being alive, when they come through the birth canal, they entered a stressful world, and that is going to be a reality. So just know that that's going to happen. You need to probably first start with what's going on with your emotions? Because what happens pretty soon is, if we are looking at our children's emotions and then deciding how our day is going to go, we're living around the emotional life of children, which I was confused about this. Like, were they crabby when they woke up, or was I crabby? I don't know, but now everybody's crabby. So you have the most control at that point is to actually check in and see what's going on with yourself. So when you're aware of your emotions, you will actually be probably more able to hold your children's emotion. So start with this. So if you are feeling, the most common thing that people feel is anxious, I would say. They miss that they're anxious and they say, I'm not anxious, I'm angry, or I'm mad, I'm agitated. All those are different words for I'm anxious. So let's just take anxiety and deal with that. You're aware of it. You feel it in your chest, you feel it in your stomach, you feel it in your head, you're pacing a lot, you're talking really fast, you're having rapid fire thoughts, you can't rest, you're like a dog that can't find its place of rest in the house, right? You're just agitated. Go find a place and put yourself, not in a timeout, but a time in, which says, I'm going to take 5 minutes and check in and see what's going on with me. How am I doing? How am I feeling? What's going on with my emotions? Welcome emotions. I'm feeling angry, agitated, worried, sad, mad. Okay, what does that emotion need right now? And then you figure it out. Now, sometimes it means I need more than a 5-minute rest, which means I might have to make a call to somebody for help. It may mean that I am going to use that movie this time because I need to go figure out what's going on. So you figure out what's going on with you. We talked earlier about finding comfort. What brings comfort? Most of us, when we're anxious, need some form of comfort. So what are your options? I know that I like to take a bath. The body needs to be taken care of. Maybe you need to take a walk. An ice pack to the back of the neck actually helps cool down the system if you're feeling anxious. So take care of the body. And then take care of the thoughts. What's going on in your mind? Can you shift from feeling overwhelmed? Like, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you might have rapid thoughts going. How can you take those thoughts and organize them in a way that works for you? So that's note cards, maybe you put them in your phone, but you need to kind of try to de-escalate the thoughts that are going on in your mind. And then we put it into practice. So putting it into practice is, I'm aware I'm anxious, I know I need comfort, I've got a lot of thoughts going on, I'm going to actually respond to my anxiety in some tangible way that will bring me comfort. And of course, there's numbing things. We were talking earlier about how much Netflix is good for a person. If Netflix is the only way that you can calm yourself, and that's the only resource you have right now, go with that one. But then when you are in a calm place, say, I think I'd like to find some other resources than Netflix to calm myself. So you might find that you find a passage of scripture that brings a great deal of comfort. You might find that a conversation with someone is really important, a walk around the block. Expand your tool chest of what is needed to bring comfort when you're anxious.
So I tend to run very anxious. Yeah. That's just part of who I am. And sometimes it is hard for me to connect with my child's anxiety because of my own anxiety. And so for me, one thing that I actually put into practice is when I hit that space of, oh my goodness, I am so stressed out and I'm anxious, I actually drive through Starbucks and I get a cup of coffee and I drive with my children in the car and I take a mental break. I just take a mental pause and I let them have their leapfrog pads in the car and I drive around. And there's something about that practice, and I probably do it 2 to 3 times a week. And something about that practice actually brings calming to me. And when I get home, I'm able to actually be present with my children and process their anxiety.
Yeah, a present parent makes room for a child to be present with their emotions. A disconnected parent means that a child will often withhold bringing more anxiety to the moment or bring their emotions or their worries, unless there are those kids who will say, no, actually, let me make it really obvious that I need some help, right? So there's the withdrawing child, and then there's the acting out child. So both things can happen. But really, what Kelsey just described, what she does, finding out what you need to bring your anxiety down to make room for your children so that they can they feel safe to say, this is what's going on with me. And when you're more present with your emotions, you're more likely to understand when they're doing an anxious behavior. You're not like, just stop it. I just said, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. And, and you realize, like, stop it never stops the behavior, right? And then you're anxious and they're anxious. So really, if you can get present with your emotions, present the God of comfort that will be with you, then you're going to be more able to respond to what's going, and as well as actually notice. A distracted parent often will not notice their child is anxious.
So what are some more practical ways that we can engage with our children in their stress and anxiety that they're experiencing?
This reminds me of a question that came up when I was taking psych disorders. Somebody asked the professor, what do you do with a family that's in crisis? And she said, the number one thing you need to help them figure out is how to play together again. And there is something incredibly helpful about learning how to play. So one thing I'm just going to give you one thing that's worked for me. My kids are all older, but we have found that a dinner time that is not rushed has been really helpful, because if we make a big enough space of time, they will actually talk. Now, I know if you've got younger kids, you're like, that is not fun. But if you've got little ones, this is actually one that I love. Ask them, what does their anxiety sound like, and ask them to give a rhythm. So if you asked me right now what my anxiety sounds like, it sounds a little like this. Why? Because it just is getting louder and louder. So it just helps describe other than words, because sometimes kids can't put words. We're really good about helping kids with emotional vocabulary, but what does their anxiety sound like? I think that's a great way to give them some, like, engage the whole body in describing. So,
Ash, what do you do with your kids? You have 4, so how do you engage anxiety and stress with them?
I lock myself in a closet and cry. I don't know. No, but one tool that we do use a lot of is essential oils. Lavender is very calming, and so I tend to just roll lavender on the back of their necks, their temples, and their feet. The other fun thing that we have is one of those pronged head scratchers. Have you guys seen those? Yeah. They're so lovely, and every one of my kids just melts when they feel that. And it's almost like your anxiety is just melting away as you're like, oh. Yeah. So that's really something.
So you kind of tend to their senses.
We're very sensory and touchy-feely in our house. So, yes.
So my kids are at the place now where when they get interrupted, they'll say, hey, you cut my words. And and they actually get really stressed out about people cutting their words. And so one thing, as they start to escalate, and Aimee taught me this actually, is I'll put my fingers out and I'll say, okay, breathe in and blow out the candle. And so they'll breathe in and they'll blow out, and it calms them down. It makes them kind of slow down. Sometimes I put 5 candles out because my son, he'll go, okay, and he'll go right on to the next thing, and I'll say, no, blow them all out. Oh, no, they caught fire again, blow them all out again. And we have found that to be actually really soothing for them. Also, my daughter has a weighted puppy, like a little stuffed animal that's weighted, that sometimes that when she just sits with, she feels comfort. And that also can be very soothing for her. So great. So it sounds like you can just experiment and find something that
it
works for your kids.
like, there's the Ashley brought up tapping, we can tap. There's all the senses. But a good old hug, like, hey, everybody, let's give yourself a hug. Okay, now let's squeeze the shoulders. If you can get the body to engage in stress. But if you notice, too, we're having fun. And when you start to move the body and have fun, all of a sudden you're not in that locked down, anxious place. And so getting them moving, getting them talking, and just at every age, you have to shift a little bit sometimes,
And you have to find what's right for your child.
Yeah.
And sometimes a little sugar helps.
A little sugar?
Yeah, just saying. Just have a sweet treat.
Yeah.
Helps me.
Sweet treat helps me too, until I get a headache. But no, really, you know what works for your family, so I just want to encourage you to do that.